Hello and welcome to the show. I'm just sitting here on a Saturday morning trying to think of what nuggets to spit for you guys. And the next thing on the list is how to think like a media company for maximum impact. Yes, now I know that those of you who signed up to this podcast because you wanted hardcore tips and tricks and frameworks on sales, you might be getting pretty frustrated right now because I keep going on about this whole content thing. But don't worry, it's going to come to an end very soon, and I will head back to the questions from members of the audiences where I speak, people that I'm offering coaching and training for, or those of you who are listeners to the podcast who hit me up on LinkedIn or on WhatsApp with more questions. By the way, if this is your first time of listening to the show, at the end of the show, I give up my contact details. So get in touch, let's hear your questions, and I might address some of them on future episodes of the podcast if we discuss some useful nuggets that I think people can learn from. So, how to think like a media company for maximum impact? Well, the old way or the old paradigm of doing things, when I say old now, what I mean is doing business without social networks. I'm trying to be contextual here. So I'm speaking in terms of social media, social networks versus no social media, no social networks. So back in the old days, if you were a painter, what you would try to do is to open a store or to keep the buckets of paint in your house or in your room or your warehouse or your whatever. You'd have a bunch of staff, some painters. You'd have to worry about inventory management. And then you would try to advertise to promote your business, whether it's advertising on TV or radio or the church bulletin or whatever. You would also attend business expos, housing expos, all those sorts of things. That's what you would do to promote your business in the old days without social networks. But now that we have social networks, the dynamic in play is this. There's the decentralization of TV and radio because a lot of people are spending all their time on mobile, on tablets, laptops, blah, 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 whatever. For instance, take your favorite radio station. In my own case, that's Sound City in Abuja. So Sound City, radio station, they're on the air. But they also have the app because they know that a bunch of folks are listening to all the things that they put out over on mobile and are not necessarily tuning into their car radios anymore. So, with this new paradigm and with TV and radio and all the other kinds of traditional media being decentralized, if you're a painter or whatever business it is that you're trying to do, what is the new way of going about things? Now, I'm not one of those people who's going to say, let's ditch the old way. So, the old things are still important. If you're a painter, still open up a store or keep your paint in your room. Okay, well, I don't know if it's safe for you to keep paint in the house where you live with your wife and children, or with your husband and children if you're a female painter, because we're equal opportunity over here. But I haven't met any female painters before. Oh, by the way, when I say painter, I don't mean painter like artist. I mean painters like you get a ladder, you climb up the side of a house, and you start painting the whole building. So, still do the old stuff. Open up a store. Open up a market shop in Kaura Market or Wuse Market or Alausa Market or whichever market you are in, whichever part of the world. And then, yes, you still have to do your inventory management. You still have to hire staff, boys and girls that are going to follow, climb the building with you as well. Or if you don't do the climbing, people who will actually climb and paint the buildings. And still, advertise to promote your business in the church bulletin or whatever. Also, attend business expos, housing expos. Like, I think there's the Nigerian Housing Trade Fair or something like that that goes on in Abuja, I think, on an annual basis. So, yeah, you should attend those sorts of things because that is where you're going to meet possible customers, and you're also going to be able to build good alliances from there. Because let's say you attend one of those things and you have conversations with 5 property developers, and maybe you really get cool with one of them, and one of them is building handling a property development in Abuja or maybe in Asaba or whatever, and they invite you to put in a quote for a couple of units. It could be a sizable deal. So still, do all this old paradigm stuff. But because media networks have been decentralized now, you should also be using content to build an audience for future sales. And I'm highlighting that part, for future sales. Because lots of us get on the internet and we think that we're there to just have a good time. Yes, we should have a good time, connect with our family members abroad, connect with people from school that we lost touch with. Yes, all that is important. But primarily, the main reason why you should be on social media, if you're a painter, is you're trying to use it to build an audience for future sales. Yes, brand play is also important and all those other things. But still, I'm going to say one more time. The emphasis is to use content to build an audience for future sales. So, people are now watching mobile as the new TV. They're now using mobile as the new radio. For those of you who listen to Spotify or who listen to your favorite radio station on the app or who listen to podcasts, so that's essentially TV watching. It's the same TV watching habit in a new format, or the same radio listening habit in the new format. So, what you should do as a painter or any other business person is to create content that educates, or create content that entertains, or create content that does both, which is infotainment. By the way, if you think you're really cool at infotainment, hit me up. Let's have a chat. Let's see what principles you can share about how people can create infotaining content. Because for me, I'm all about that educational content. And typically, I say no to entertaining content, especially if it involves dancing, pointing, twerking, grinding, and all that stuff on TikTok or Instagram Reels. So, where was I? Yes, so you should be creating content, because this is the new TV, this is the new radio. Within the content that you create, we should remember once in a while to put in calls to action. Calls to action are the things that you are inviting other people to do as they engage with your content. So advertise your products or your services. Advertise your new glossy whatever paint for the rainy season that stops mold. Advertise it, because it is something that people are looking for. I live in Abuja, and I know that all the mothers I run into, I haven't seen any single mom that I run into that is not concerned that the house that they live in currently has mold. I don't know if it's an Abuja thing or it's a national thing, but in Abuja, it's like every single house has mold. You paint the house, it's looking nice, it's looking fresh. You live in it for a year. By the time you enter into year two, 2 or 3 rainy seasons, and then there's mold and the paint is peeling and everything, and it looks like it's an Abuja thing. Now, I can assure you that Abuja mothers, are concerned about that. If you have the cure, then by all means, advertise this new paint of yours. You can also try different ideas around experiential marketing. Maybe I'll make a podcast episode about that in the future, because there's an element of sales that is involved in it. Because when you're doing things experiential, people are interacting, having conversations with you, being involved with you. So there's opportunity to have really interesting business conversations there. Then also calls to action around community, around engagement, and all these sorts of things. But remember that the focus is we are using content to build an audience for future sales. Let me repeat it again, because we spend a lot of time on social media, we get carried away. Interesting video, Nigerian celebrity did this person is sleeping with that person, Tinubu did this, blah blah blah. It's normal, we all get carried away. But quickly refocus, because you are using content to build an audience for future sales. Okay, then where was I? Now, this whole thing of thinking like a media company, it requires a new way of thinking. You can't just think of yourself as a painter or XYZ business that you're involved in. Remember, the example that I've been using since I started this episode is I've been using painter example. So the new way of thinking is you can't think of yourself as a painter. Oh, sorry, one moment. I have to quickly attend to something. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. My attention was required elsewhere. All right, where was I? Yeah, so I was talking about how now thinking like a media company, it requires a new way of thinking. So back to the painter example. If you are a painter, don't think of yourself as a painter anymore. You may have to explain this to your wife or your business partner that, look, I know we started off this business with me buying 500 buckets of paint, and I wanted to be the biggest painting company in Abuja. But I've heard this guy on the podcast who says we need to think like a media company. So instead of me being a painter, with social media, I think I'm going to think of myself as a paint media company. And I'm going to be producing media across XYZ platforms. I'm going to be producing audio or video or photos or blog posts or whatever it is that you think will work in the painting space, because I'm trying to build the biggest paint media company. The trick is this. If you can actually build the biggest paint media company in Nigeria, in Abuja, in Oka, in Makudi, in Ikeja, in wherever you are, you will end up selling the most paint in XYZ said part of the city or said part of the globe that you live in. So that is the new scope. We are not just painters, we're not just wedding photographers, we're not just makeup artists, we're not just fishmongers. Oh, by the way, I thought it was hilarious when I found out that people who sell fish are actually fishmongers, because I grew up in my own school in this part of the world in Abuja, in Wusewan Primary School. People used to gossip a lot. We used to call them gossip mongers. So I always thought a monger was a bad thing. So it was hilarious for me to find out that people who sell fish are fishmongers. So I guess not all mongery is bad. So, yeah, you're not a fish person, you're not a paint person, you're not a photography person, you're not a makeup person, you're not a fashion person. You are trying to build a media company. And if you can build the biggest, the brightest, the best, the most efficient media company, then in theory, you should end up selling the most paint, the most makeup, the most whatever it is that you do. So, yeah, that's it. Okay, 11 minutes. Let me wrap it up here. Hopefully, this will be one of the shortest episodes ever. So, like I promised at the beginning, connect with me on LinkedIn. Here are my details. My name is Tavishima Ayede. I'm the host of the show. You can confirm the spelling of my name from this link where you're currently listening to this episode. My email address is also there in case you're an email person. So far, most people seem to be WhatsApp people because people hit me up on WhatsApp. A couple people seem to be LinkedIn people because I do get some LinkedIn connection requests where people say I heard you on the podcast. But so far, I have not received any emails from people saying I heard you on the podcast. So yeah, those are my details. Oh yeah, WhatsApp, the phone number 080-6466-2140. The country code is +234 for those of you who are not Nigerian. Thank you very much for your time and attention. I'll catch you guys at the next episode. And until then, you guys have a wonderful Saturday morning. Enjoy the rest of the day, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow.